Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rossignol, and today I'm excited to talk to you about off-season training and what it should look like, some things that you should really prioritize, and how you should set yourself up for a great spring season. It's just me today. I'm by myself, and I'm really excited to dig into these things. These three things that we're going to be going over, how we're going to be structuring our athletes here at RT and their programs, the focus that we have, or the stuff we talk to our athletes daily about. You know, each athlete we sit down with in the off season and build out a plan, and some of them we're talking to a little bit more, some a little bit less, some we know exactly what they need, some we need to sit down and dig a little deeper. It just depends on where the athlete is, how old he is, where he is in his playing journey and career. You know, we have our pro guys who need to make a jump really quickly. We have our younger guys that just need to continue to build that foundation. But no matter what, the number one thing is to have a plan and really make sure that our athletes have something that has a plan and set up for them and to help them be ready when the most important part is them performing on the field. Sure, we want to hit PRs, we want to throw harder, hit farther, do all these things, but we got to make sure we're doing that when it matters. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. But the first thing I want to talk about is why you're training. See, your training should be like you're making deposits into a bank account. If you look at that as your goal is to make these daily deposits into your bank account so that help you build this wealth for when the spring comes around. So every day that you're training, when you're doing your strength training, you're making a deposit. When your nutrition, your skill work, and even your mental performance, these are things that you're doing now to help make deposits that are going to set you up for success later. And it's not about, making these huge deposits once and then going. It's about making little deposits each day to set you up for success long term. And one little deposit today is not going to prepare you and show you these great results for 4, 5, 6 months from now. It's being able to do that each and every day to set you up to build that wealth over time, and then now once the spring comes around, you have this really big, for quote unquote, or bank account to draw from. And so I think two things that we often see when it comes to this is guys they think they do one tough day, or they get after it once, or they eat really well once, and then they expect that this is going to be this huge deposit, but it's not. It's a thing that it's a patient game, and you have to be willing to do those little things over and over to set you up for success. And something I often tell our athletes is you have to be patient in the results, but not patient in the work that you're doing. You have to dig and feel like, or want to know, what else can I be doing each day? And sometimes there is more that you can be doing, and sometimes you're doing all this stuff, and it might not be showing up, or the deposit might not be big right now, but over time it's gonna accumulate and accumulate and accumulate and set you up for success. And this is really important because come the springtime, when you are hoping that all this work that you put in is going to pay off, that's when you're going to start taking these deposit or withdrawing from this bank account. And yes, in-season training is very important. It's something we're very big on here. We make sure to really preach to all of our athletes that you should be training in season. But with that, the demands of a season are high. And so when you're having these high demands during the season and you're training, or you're playing every day and practicing every day and all the other stuff that you're doing, you're going to be withdrawing from the account and withdrawing at a fast rate. And so it's making sure you're doing the stuff now to prepare you when that time comes. And so it's not a quick get rich quick scheme here. It's something over time that's going to have to accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. And as you do that and you build up this time and all this energy that you put into it, that's where you're going to reap the benefits, and that's where the account's going to fill up to where you're able to withdraw from it a little bit faster, withdraw from it a little bit faster as you get into the season. So that's just kind of like how I think is a really good way to look at it. If you're hoping for something that's going to get that little quick get rich quick, then you're not going to be really happy when you see the results later on. And one of the big things with this is creating good habits, and this is something we talk to all of our athletes about, is building habits that are going to set you up for success. So and I've talked about this in an earlier podcast that I did by myself, but when it comes to nutrition, setting yourself up by prepping your food, knowing what times you're going to eat, knowing how many calories, and breaking and dividing it up into that many meals. And if you do things like that, or training at the same time every day, and obviously with especially kids that are in school, demands of schedule, things like that, the time may vary, but trying to have somewhat of a consistent schedule so that your body gets used to those demands, and what you have every day, or when those days that you're supposed to be training or whatnot. The more consistent, the more habits you have that you can stick to, the better. And it's not about having 15 different habits. Have 4 or 5 habits that you consistently are working off of, and you do that daily. You're going to see those, when it comes to making your deposits, those deposits are going to start to multiply and multiply and multiply, and long term you're going to be in a much better spot. So we talked about making those deposits, and here's how you can make those deposits. So we talk about it all the time, having a plan, understanding where you are in your off season, and knowing what you need to do and when you need to be ready. So for our guys, we're going to, we call it reverse engineer. We're going to take when they need to be ready and reverse engineer to the time that we want them to go out there and perform. And so for our athletes, the goal isn't to PR in November. Right now, our goal for our guys isn't to PR or start seeing these ungodly numbers like in the weight room. It's not, we're not maxing, and we don't really ever max out. That's a different topic. But the goal isn't to be max. It's now we're building volume. We're building off of frequency. We're doing stuff more often, getting our bodies acclimated to what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up that volume in the new movement pattern, so our bodies get used to these new patterns, so that our bodies can adjust. And if they don't do that, then when you want it to show up on the field, it's not going to be there. So right now, November, we're slowly building up that volume. We're learning these new training or new movement patterns in our training, and trying to move at a little bit slower pace, so these patterns start to stick, and then they can show up long term. So remembering that what the end goal is what's going to set you up for success long term, not just PRing in November and then it's not able to stick when it comes February, March, April. So know when you need to be peaking. So set yourself up for success to peak at that time. And also, I think it's also set yourself up mentally to know when you want yourself to be ready. We see too many guys who get frustrated in November, December, because they're not hitting the numbers that they want, whether it be strength, power, velocity, exit velocity, all those things that we're hoping to make that next jump. Our goal isn't to see you do that when it doesn't matter, to be honest. I don't care if you hit a PR in the gym if it doesn't show up on the field. Now, if we do all the things right, and as we're prepping and increasing the intent, those numbers will start to go up, and that's what we typically see with our athletes. But it doesn't matter if it doesn't go up and it doesn't show up on the field when it really counts. It's where they used to have a saying that you don't want to be a 5 o'clock hitter. The guy that goes out and hits bombs out of the ballpark at 5 a.m. during BP, but then strikes out every at bat during when the lights turn on. So, remembering what the goal is, where you are in your off season, understanding what you're trying to do. And for us, we talk to our athletes about what the goal is during this time frame and what we're trying to see, what we're trying to accomplish. And it's important that for you, if you don't have that, remember that. It's like, okay, I want to hit a PR come January, February, March. And so what's going to set me up for that? And not getting upset or not skipping steps or not jumping ahead during these early months of the off season when you're trying to prepare your body, prepare your tissues, the tissues that you need to be able to handle the demands of that. So you have to do that now so that when it's time to do the things that are cool in game, that's what you're trying to do now. You're preparing the body for it. You don't want to, in terms of this kind of a little bit off of that topic, but we see guys want to hit these big PRs or increase this velocity. But if you haven't put the tissues to the stress and the time for them to be ready for it, then you're not setting yourself up for long-term success when it comes to the body being able to handle the demands that you're asking for. So use this time to prepare the body for the demands that you're hoping to have it achieve. And that's where setting up yourself with making those daily deposits every day to put yourself in a position to withstand what you're hoping to do long term. And just remember, we're playing the long game here. And the long game's different in every scenario. But at the end of the day, the long game in this is the season. Right now is the off season. We want to play long game to be ready for the season. Nothing you do in November, December is going to matter or count and it's not going to be there if it's not there when the lights turn on. One other thing I think we often miss out on, our athletes, or not necessarily it's a conversation we have with our athletes, is making sure they understand that the skill work and the training are not separate. They're all interconnected. And when we have this approach, we give our athletes an understanding of what they need to do and what they need to work on and why they're working on it. And I think the why is the biggest thing. We want our athletes to know what and why they're working on so they know what they're trying to accomplish. And just telling our athletes do this and do what I say, it doesn't give them an understanding of what and why and what they're trying to accomplish. So I think one thing when new athletes come in, or when I talk to other athletes outside of our doors, our facility, is like they don't treat the skill work and the training interconnected, and they should all be one. Meaning, and this is just a rough example, but if I'm trying to learn how to hinge on the mound or at the plate as I go into my forward move, I'm going to want to train that position in my training in a hinge and things like that. And so the more I can learn how to do that, or if I need to side bend better on the mound or at the plate, I need to work on my side bending in training. These little things, when we start connecting the two, makes it one, so you know what you're trying to feel. It makes it easier for you to then go execute that when you're trying to execute your skill and perform. But also, it makes the focus a lot more, it just puts a lot more focus into what you're doing. And as with anything, intent matters. And it's not the intent of maxing out your velocity, maxing out in the weight room, just swinging out of your shoes and trying to max exit velocity. The intent of the focus of what I'm trying to do. And intent should be how focused I am at what I'm trying to accomplish in this given task. And so something I think is we really try to help our athletes connect those dots. If I want a guy to be able to or needs better mobility, whatever it is. That's where stuff we're going to hammer in the warm up, and they're going to understand why they're doing it so that we can start to see it show up in their skill work. If they need better stability, whatever it is, we want to make sure we're training those characteristics in their training, and then have them try to find those same feelings when they get into their skill. And the way we get them to try to feel those movements in their skill is breaking down into much smaller movements. So it could be your drill work on the throwing side, it could be your drill work on the hitting side. It's not like, okay, I want you to feel this in your warm up or on the strength side, and then go and just go hit live at bats. Like, no, you're not. That's not where you're going to be able to accomplish it. It's taking those movements and then using them in your prep work and then interconnecting them so that you're able to feel them out, so that now once you get into game time or more of a high intensity day or high intensity bullpen or live at bats, whatever it is, now it just happens, and you're not having to think about it or go, oh, I need to feel my left hip turn on. No, once you start trying to do that, then you're starting to think too much during the given task or when you're trying to perform. So use that time in the early off season, like we talked about earlier, to start to feel those things, connect those things, understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And if you're not here and you're doing something but you don't know why, you ask why. It's very powerful and very helpful. The why gives you an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. And too many times I think athletes just go do a drill without understanding what the why is, and then they're not to one, feel what they're trying to do. Two, they're not able to kind of like have any. They're just a drill. They're just moving to move, and that's the one thing we really preach to our athletes is understanding that we're not just doing something to do something. There's a purpose behind everything we do, and so when we start connecting these things, that it starts to give us that purpose that we're looking for. And so this doesn't mean like every drill that you do in the weight room is 100% going to be like a feeling that you're trying to feel when you're trying to perform. When you're squatting, yes, you're just trying to build overall strength if you squat. Or if you're doing a single leg movement, like, yeah, you're just building single leg strength. But there are some other movements that should be interconnected that help you translate and transfer or feel what you're trying to feel. And even as simple as feeling yourself load a split stance or single leg RDL in your hip, that same feeling that you may want to feel, in the middle or the beginning of like your prep work when you're throwing or hitting. And so when you start to feel, oh, that's what that feels like, that's when you have those light bulb moments, and then you start to really teach those patterns, and those patterns start to carry over, and then now you start to see it happen when it's time, when the lights turn on, like we talked about. So I think it's understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it, and really trying to understand that they're not separate. They are all connected as one. And so this podcast is a little bit on the shorter side, but I think these are things that are really important to helping you dominate your off season, and understanding like everything that you do every day is a deposit into your overall long-term or the success you're going to have during the season. And make sure that you're just trying to add up these deposits so that when you have to start making those withdrawals, your body is ready to withstand it. I think if there's anything that I could also add in is understanding with all this stuff, understanding the recovery side of it all. It's not just push. It's understanding, okay, recovery is a piece of this, meaning the nutrition, the sleep, the active recovery, the days off. And it's not like there's a ton of days off for our athletes. Depends on how many days of training. Each athlete's going to be different. But understanding that, when you're having an off day, don't go to the local gym and hit a max set of squats or bicep curls, whatever. Your body needs to recover. Part of the recovery is just as important as the training itself. And sometimes we see guys who, when they need to be recovering, they're not, and then they're wondering why in a month or two their body's feeling kind of beat down, or they're not getting the results, or they're not seeing it start to translate. And so understanding that recovery is just as important, and that should be built into all of this stuff that we're doing. Recovery, the right recovery, is just a part of the deposit that you're making each day, so that your body is getting prepared and getting better and ready for when it's time to make those withdrawals like I talked about earlier. So I hope this helps. I hope you make the most of your off season. If you're interested in how we do it and what we do on a daily basis and the plans we put together for our athletes, and making sure our athletes understand the why, please reach out. Always reach out at rossistraining.com. You can also find us at Rossy's Training on Instagram. But until next time, thanks for listening.